As Montag Summers states in the opening line of his book, The Vampire, His Kith and Kin, throughout the whole vast shadowy world of ghosts and demons, there is no figure so terrible, no figure so dreaded and abhorred, yet the cause of such fearful fascination as the vampire. In this speech, we will be exploring three major works of vampire fiction: Bram Stoker's Dracula, Anne Rice's Vampire Chronicles, and finally Stephanie Meyer's Twilight series. All of these works I have read and researched because the vampire has always been of great interest to me. We will cover a bit of the history of each of these works. However, our main focus is to see how the way we perceive vampires has evolved over the years. We are going to begin with Dracula. According to the Everything Vampire book by Argene Spite, Barb Karg, and Rick Sutherland, three vampire works of fiction actually preceded the 1897 release of Dracula, and there is considerable evidence that he took influence from some of these. However, it is safe to say that Dracula is both unique and can be considered the first truly legendary vampire fiction published. In the novel, Dracula is described as appearing like the vampires of folklore, which means very monstrous and gruesome. And in 1922, an unauthorized film adaptation of Dracula was released. The name of the vampire was changed to Count Orlok in order to avoid a lawsuit. Now, as you can see, his hands are very long and unnaturally curled. His ears are pointed. His head is bald, and the clothes are very shabby and undistinguished. This is a very accurate portrayal of Stoker's Dracula. However, in 1924, all of this changed when actor, theater producer, and playwright Hamilton Dean debuted his own Dracula stage play. In the play, he transformed Dracula from grotesque fiend to a gentleman. This idea of appearance was used in 1931's first ever official film adaptation of Dracula, starring Bela Lugosi as Dracula himself. As you can see, this is quite a drastic change from Orlok. The hands and ears are normally shaped, the hair is well groomed, and his attire is now a suit, which shows sophistication, and in my opinion makes him more frightening, for it makes him easier to blend in with humans to further deceive his prey. No one set the standard for vampire fiction like Stoker until 1976, when author Anne Rice debuted Interview with the Vampire, the first book in her Vampire Chronicles series. Along with this novel spawned the most well-known vampire on the planet aside from Dracula, Lestat. He is described as being narcissistic, extremely passionate, and always asking questions of why things are the way they are in the world. He is also, like all of Rice's vampires, described as being extremely attractive. In 1994, the film for Interview with the Vampire was released. Anne Rice says on her website, annerice.com, that she actually had the privilege of writing the script for the film. Tom Cruise stars as Lestat, and Brad Pitt stars as Louise, his newly created vampire. As you can see, they appear very human, and their attire shows their aristocratic status, as well as reflects the era from which they were born in. Our final author today is Stephanie Meyer, creator of the Twilight series. In the young adult market, she holds the level of fame and success that Anne Rice does. It is, as she says on her website, stephanieMeyers.com, she actually got the idea for the Twilight series after awakening from a very vivid dream on the morning of June 2nd, 2003. In the dream, she recalls an average teenage girl, who would later become Bella Swan, and a vampire, who would later become Edward Cullen, in a meadow in the woods discussing two major issues: the fact that the two were falling in love with each other, and the vampire was having a very difficult time not killing the girl due to the fact that he was particularly attracted to the scent of her blood. And from this spawned a 4-novel-long love story. In 2008, the first Twilight film was released, starring Robert Pattinson as Edward Cullen, who has now become the teenage heartthrob of the country, and Kristen Stewart as Bella Swan. The other characters in this photo are sort of Edward's adoptive family. They are vampires as well. This is obviously a complete modernization of the vampire. Their clothing is very average teenage style, with the exception of Alice, who is kind of the oddball of the series. And they also do not have fangs. They have strong, piercing teeth. In conclusion, we have seen that the vampire has transformed ultimately from a grotesque fiend into a sex symbol. I mean, honestly, if Edward Cullen looked anything like Count Orlok, do you really think we would have had masses of teenagers flocking to the Twilight premiere gossiping about which character they had crushes on? Of course not. Although our views have completely changed, the vampire continues to feed on the neck of the entertainment industry and shows no signs of stopping.